So I just finished Red Rising, the trilogy, and I have some thoughts. Is this one that's worth picking up and reading? Let's dig into it. All right, so Red Rising is a trilogy written by Pierce Brown. This came out during a time where kind of the dystopian future worlds were kind of all the rage. You know, you've got the Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, all of those kind of series. And then this series comes along. And there's just something about this series that I really love. One of my favorite trilogies that I've ever read. Now, granted, there are 2 books that have come out since then that kind of continue the story of Darrow. And I haven't read those yet. I'm going to this month read the first one of those 2, which is Iron Gold. But I had read this trilogy before, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun to go back and reread it and revisit these characters and the people that I'd gotten to know. So if you've never read Red Rising before, let me share with you what the series is and why I enjoyed it so much. So the trilogy starts with the book Red Rising. This happens in the future of humanity, I guess. They've gone out and expanded beyond Earth and have kind of inhabited the different worlds in the solar system. And they've created what they call the society, which is based on the color that you're assigned at birth. You're born into these different colors, and the color that you're born into is kind of the job that you have and the role that you play in the society. Reds are kind of toward the bottom and do all of the menial kind of labor, and there's other colors like pinks, which are more, for lack of a better term, they're kind of the pleasure workers in the society. And then you've got the grays, which are kind of the military, and you've got the golds, which are at the top of society and kind of run everything. You've got the silvers that do a lot of the commerce and things like that. So there's this whole thought out system and world that this takes place in, which I think is fantastic. One of the things that I love in a book series is the world building part of it, especially if you're in a speculative fiction kind of genre like sci-fi or fantasy. I want that world to feel like it makes sense and to feel lived in. And I feel like Pierce Brown does a great job of doing that in the Red Rising trilogy. Our hero in the story is named Darrow, and he is a red. He is at the bottom of the society. And a series of events happen. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it, but this series of events lead him to be able to kind of infiltrate the gold level and basically live as a gold. And part of the reason for this, implied in the name Red Rising, is he's part of this group called the Sons of Ares, and they want to kind of create an uprising and overturn the society. And that's kind of the premise of the story. He goes to what's called the Academy in this story. And here's where it feels very similar to like the Hunger Games, in that they're kind of sorted into different houses based on the different gods. They have a competition. It's almost like a game-like kind of thing, where at the end someone is kind of declared the winner depending on how they manage things. This is a very harsh environment. Right off the bat, in a certain series of events, 50% of the people that are in the academy are killed off right away. And there's a reason for that, to teach these golds to be strong and to do what they need to do to conquer and everything. So Darrow's got to succeed here at the academy, and this follows his adventures of how to do that and how he kind of builds a team and how he becomes a leader and starts to develop as a leader. What I really like about the Darrow character throughout the series is that you do see that growth. You see where he starts and how he struggles to kind of accept his role and doesn't really see himself as a leader or a capable leader, and how he has to then grow into that role. He starts to build loyalties with these different golds that he's working with at the academy, and you get to see how he does that, and that's really interesting to me. What I really love about this series, though, is the next book, Golden Sun. Takes us into a whole new aspect of the society, a whole new aspect of Darrow and his learning and his growth. And it's completely outside of the academy and what happened there. And I really like this because when I read the Hunger Games series for the first time, it kind of bothered me that the second Hunger Games book was a lot like the first Hunger Games book. Here's what worked. We're going to find a way to throw her back into the games and have a new adventure there, but it's really a very similar story. Golden Sun is a very different story than Red Rising, and it really continues that growth and development that we see of Darrow and the other characters involved. And you start to see the beginnings of Darrow as this revolutionary, as this leader who's really going to change the society, and how he's going to go about doing that, and whether he's doing it for the right reasons or not. So that's Golden Sun. That's this one here. Morning Star is the completion of the trilogy, and we get to see what happens if he's able to accomplish his goal, if he's able to create that uprising, and whether or not it's successful. What I really like is this picks up where Golden Sun leaves off, and Golden Sun is a great piece of a trilogy in that it's the second, it's the middle book. And in that middle book, it really is supposed to take away everything and put our protagonist in a position where you're wondering, how are they going to get out of this? And Golden Sun does a great job of that. Morning Star picks right up from there and takes us to where we need to go. I had read this series before, and I have to say with Morning Star, what surprised me the most is that there were moments where even though I knew what the outcome was going to be, they still hit just as hard as the first time that I read them. There were moments where I was just stunned at what happened and shocked and emotional, even though I knew what the outcome was going to be. Now, that's powerful writing, and I think Pierce Brown deserves a lot of credit for that. Each of these books, I feel like, are very well paced. The action moves along pretty quickly, and you don't find yourself being bored. At least I didn't. And I felt like he keeps it going at that same click for most of the series, which is pretty impressive. You end up caring a lot about these characters, and you end up really loving or hating them depending on the character. And I think that that's, again, attributed to the great writing by Pierce Brown. I love a good villain when I really hate that villain, and I really just don't want to see them succeed because they are just rotten people. But I also like villains that you feel a little bit for them. You understand where they're coming from. You get where their struggles are, and you can kind of see their point of view a little bit. And you get both of those kinds of villains in these books. I love a protagonist who's not perfect, and you have to see that growth and development, because I can see myself more in a protagonist who isn't perfect, who makes mistakes, than I can in somebody who never makes mistakes and who is perfect. That person is just boring to read. Darrow is not one of those people. He is someone that I can identify with in a lot of ways, in that he makes a lot of mistakes, and he has to learn from them. And that's really the goal of life anyway, is that we all improve and try to learn. Overall, I would give this trilogy 5 out of 5 stars. It is probably one of my favorite trilogies that have been written recently. It is just start to finish really great. I listen to these on Audible, and I have to say that the narrator there is fantastic and does a great job doing different accents and does a great job telling the story. I just feel like he reads it really well. So there you go. If you haven't read the Red Rising trilogy, I would highly recommend picking this up. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more book content and more movie content. We'll see you later.